Welcome to the Coaching Call. I'm Dr. Summer Kassmel, dentist, practice owner, and leadership coach for dental practice owners who are tired of being the hardest working person in a practice that still can't run without them. In this podcast, we're going to talk about what actually builds a practice that you can step away from. The systems, the leadership, the team accountability, and honestly, the foundational inner work it takes to stop being the bottleneck and start being the real CEO. This isn't a business podcast about vanity metrics. It's about building a team that holds a standard when you're not in the room, producing more without grinding harder, and finally, leading in a way that feels just like you. So let's get into it. Well, welcome everyone to the Coaching Call. What I can say is if you're listening now, my guess is you know full well that, we went to dental school and we became dentists. But what nobody told us is that we were also signing up to become truly the CEO, the culture keeper, the HR department, the IT department, and the person who ends up getting called when everything falls apart at 7 a.m. in the morning on a Monday. Nobody told us the hardest part of owning a practice, it would never be the actual clinical dentistry. It would be really everything else. And if you're listening and you're not the owner, but you're running the day-to-day, you're a team leader, you manage the team, you hold the culture together while that doctor is in the chair. I'm guessing nobody really, told you any of this either. Nobody handed any of us a manual for what we're actually responsible for. We just kind of all have figured it out as we've went. Or maybe you're still figuring it out, you feel like right now. I get it. And that's why this podcast actually exists. So welcome. Welcome to the Coaching Call, which is foundational leadership principles and practical resources for dentists and their leaders. I'm your host, Dr. Summer Kassmel, founder of Ladder 5 Mentorship and Resources. And here's the thing I promise, I have been exactly where all of you are. So let me just tell you a little bit about how I got here. I was about 10 years into being an owner dentist. And if I'm honest, I was completely just exhausted. I felt as if I was imprisoned by the very practice that I worked so hard to acquire and lead. I felt as if I never had enough time really for anything. And I can still remember waking up in the middle of the night being just riddled with anxiety, thinking about frustrating team members or patient procedures that just didn't go well, wondering if I had the money to cover payroll, not to mention if I would ever have the energy to really be present at my kids' schools, their plays, their evening events. I would, in the middle of the night, walk over to my old dog's bed where my dog was sleeping, and I would just lie on that bed and cry and pet my dog because I felt really alone. I felt tired. And I wondered, is there anything else I could even just do with a dental degree, with my doctorate, instead of owning a practice? I Googled that in the middle of the night. Well, at about the same time, I was also experiencing some really just tremendous lower left back pain. And it got to the point where I couldn't get out of the dental chair after a procedure. And so when the diagnosis was finally figured out, I was told I had severe hip dysplasia and that I was going to be needing multiple surgeries and about 18 months of likely being out of the clinical chair. I was told, I was going to need a wheelchair, walkers, and it was going to take me a while to learn to walk again. So that ended up sending me on a path of figuring out, okay, what do I do? How do I run an office and make money without the use of my hands? So do I sell the practice or do I figure it out? Well, I chose the latter, and it led me to the next few years of being the most humbling and transformative of my life. I became a student of everything business and leadership. I counted it up. I really did invest over $1 million in consultants, self-development, somatic therapy, really anything and everything that I could just get my hands on to help me become the most elevated version of myself as a leader and CEO. And as things started to change significantly in my office, not just from a metric standpoint, but truly from a cultural and accountability standpoint, I began to feel freedom finally of not needing to be in the office and still have it run well, predictable, and it was productive. So I then went on to end up purchasing 4 dental offices that I merged into 2 larger multi-provider locations. And now I am so blessed to work with the most amazing, multiple wonderful associates, and an incredible leadership team that has grown over time. And over the last 15 plus years, I've invested still hundreds and thousands of dollars into understanding not just how to run a dental practice, but how to lead one. Most importantly, I will say, and this is what I hope to give to you, really just how to lead myself better, how to build something that's sustainable and meaningful. And just, I didn't want it to just look sexy on paper, which could be super busy and exhausting. So, what I found on the other side changed everything. So, my sincerest hope and the reason that I show up every day inside Ladder 5 and now on this podcast is to take everything that I learned and all of the investments I've made in myself. And I really do want to help doctors create practices, relationships, and lives that they genuinely love. Not someday, not when someday happens, but truly now. Because you shouldn't have to hit a health crisis to finally build your practice the right way. And by the right way, I mean in a way that leaves you with talented leaders who can run things without you. A business that can grow year over year and month over month without taking more of your time or more of your brain space. And a culture that attracts the best people and keeps them because everyone knows how great it is to work there. You should not have to lose something to figure it all out. What actually matters to you is what matters to me. Now, I did it the hard way so that hopefully you don't have to. And that's what this podcast is. Everything genuinely, I just wish I had known from someone who had actually done it before and been exactly in the shoes I'm standing in. So I want to be clear about who this show really is built for, because it's actually built for 2 people. The first one is you, doctor, the practice owner, the doctor who has a vision for what his or her practice could be and is living somewhere in the gap between where she is and where she wants to go. I'm certain you are good at dentistry. You are probably figuring out the rest of it just like I have. Leadership, team culture, overhead, profit, hiring, how to have the hard conversations that you want to keep just putting off, all while still trying to show up as a human being at the end of the day for your family, for other people. But the second person, it's you, the in practice leaders, the office managers, the director of operations, the back office lead, the person your doctor depends on to run the day. Hold the standards and carry that invisible layer of what keeps a practice consistently functioning. In my opinion, you're doing some of the hardest jobs in dentistry, and almost nobody tends to talk directly to you. And that is going to change here on this podcast. Both of you belong in this conversation. Practice only runs well when the owner and their leaders are aligned, equipped, and honest with each other about what's actually happening in the practice. So I will tell you the Ladder 5 framework. It is everything that we're going to talk about on this podcast will be rooted in this framework. And it has 5 pillars that I built from years being inside practice ownership and having the incredible opportunity to coach and work with other doctors and their teams over the years. So the first pillar, it's clarity, and I will state it a lot, but this means clarity around your standards, your goals, and really your vision for the business, because you cannot lead what you have not defined. Most of the chaos inside a dental practice is not a people problem. It's a clarity problem. The second pillar, I call it the compound effect. And this is the one that is about numbers and metrics. It's about understanding the metrics that actually matter in your practice once you understand your clarity, and then finally owning them instead of pushing them off to someone else or burying your head in the sand. It's about learning to make decisions that the numbers can help you navigate so you're no longer giving raises without knowing exactly how much or when or what percentage, or is it a dollar amount, or making big calls based on a feeling instead of really feeling like you have facts and data to back it up. When you own your numbers, the numbers stop owning you. The third pillar is leading with impact, because leadership in a dental practice is not about being liked. It's about being clear, consistent, and trustworthy enough that your team actually wants to follow you. The fourth pillar, it's rooted in resilience, because ownership, it's hard. There will be seasons that test everything you have. And here's the thing, the goal is not to avoid those seasons. It's really to build the roots that hold you firmly through them. Now, in addition to the pillars, I'm going to introduce nervous system work here as well, because I want listeners to understand some of these concepts in this pillar. Now, the fifth pillar, it's legacy in motion, because the doctors I work with, they're not just building practices, they want to build something that long-term matters. A standard of care, a culture, a body of work, a life that reflects who they truly are. And here is where I want you to understand all 5 of these pillars, every one of them, they're going to start in the same place. And it's going to start with you. We're going to work on how you think, how you lead yourself, how honest you are about what is really driving your decisions, your reactions, your patterns. This is that somatic practices and mindset work that I was talking about. And they're not an add on to what we do necessarily at Ladder 5. What they are is really the foundation. Because I have found you cannot build a well led practice if you're not leading yourself well first. And that took me a long time to figure out, is leading myself well first, knowing myself, my triggers, my tolerances. That actually made all the difference. So here is how the show will work is episodes drop twice a month, right around 15, 20-ish minutes or so. And they're built specifically to fit into a commute or a lunch break, a drive between offices, maybe a little walk, short enough to actually finish, but substantial enough, my hope is to make a difference in your dental practice starting this week. Some episodes may be me or another mentor, a team leader that I have, and we'll pull apart real leadership patterns that we see inside practices every single day. Some will be guest conversations. And like I said, some will just be me telling you the truth about something I wish somebody had told me sooner. But every episode will leave you with a clear tool or action step, a framework, a piece of language or verbiage that you can take directly into your practice and really use, hopefully. Because the goal is never just awareness. The goal is taking action. Real conversations happening inside real dental offices between doctors and their leaders, built on clarity, better communication, true communication, and language that actually works. It's effective. What we are ultimately building together, episode by episode, is a leadership team that is not hot and cold, not up and down, not running on fear or people pleasing, hopefully not in survival mode anymore. We're building consistent, kind, abundance minded leadership, the kind your team can really trust. I say it's like gravity when we're doing it right. The kind that makes your practice a place where people want to show up, not just a place that they have to. And I also want to be clear about the kind of community that we want to create here. It's not a place for comparison or competition or arguing to prove a point. We're not here to try to one up each other because really we all have our own clear ideas of what success looks like. We're here to make leadership, relationships in and out of the office, and the work of running the practice, we want it to just feel a little lighter. And at the end of the day, what really matters, it's you, your family, your connections, your depth of purpose, and the joy you actually experience. There's an art to it. There really is. And no two people are the same. So here's the one thing I want you to walk away every episode with. One area of awareness, it might be something physical inside your practice, a system, a process, a pattern that maybe you've been tolerating. It might be something energetic in the culture, a dynamic, a tension, maybe something unspoken that everyone is feeling, but nobody is wanting to actually name and talk about. Just one thing, because awareness is always where the work will begin. Ladder 5 sincerely wants you to build practices, relationships, and lives that you truly love, that you can feel joy in starting tomorrow. And that's not the tagline, that is truly the whole point of this. So, if you're a dental practice owner who's tired of being the bottleneck in your own business, I know like I was, feeling the anxiety in the middle of the night, this is for you. And if you are an in-practice leader who's carrying more than just your job description ever accounted for, then this is for you too. If you've ever felt like you were doing all of this alone, I want you to know you are not alone and you do not have to be alone. So hit follow wherever you're listening so you don't miss a single episode. And ideally, I hope you share this episode with other doctors and leaders in your life who also want to lead from a place of abundance instead of fear or scarcity. Other doctors and leaders who are ready to create practices that run well instead of practices that demand that they overfunction just to keep them standing. This conversation, it's for all of us to know that we are all in it together and that we share common challenges. We really do. The struggles, I promise, they're very real to all of us. That's Ladder 5, and we're here to make it all hopefully feel a little better as much as we possibly can. I'm Dr. Summer Kassmel, and this is the coaching call. My hope is we all get to go and get to work. Thanks so much for being here. If anything from today's episode sparks something for you, go to summerkassmel.com/podcast-bonus. That's where we keep all the tools and guides that go with the show. So you can take what you heard and actually put it into practice. See you next time.